Hey everyone, welcome back. We're here again to talk about my old brew system, my old DIY cooler-based system. A lot of you have asked me over time in recent years, and more often, more recently, maybe it's because of inflation costing us an arm and a leg nowadays, wanting to go a little cheaper on things, but whatever the reason is, I finally caved. I decided to go ahead and dig out my old DIY cooler-based 10-gallon mash brew system here, for your pleasure and for your viewing pleasure. But actually, as I was digging this thing out and dusting it off, I actually had a lot of good flashbacks, a lot of good memories of brewing on this thing over the years, and actually was getting more and more excited about actually doing this. So today, I actually am really excited about brewing on this thing once again. It's been a while. For those of you who are newer to my channel, may have never seen me brew on this system before. Past several years, I've actually gone electric and have been brewing on other commercially available systems like the Spike Solo, the BrewEasy, or the Grainfather, and they're all electric, right? This is a throwback before those days, back when I was doing things with a propane burner and some coolers, right? So what you're looking at here is what I think is a cost-effective way to brew beer that doesn't involve brew in the bag, because really, quite frankly, I'm not a huge fan of the brew in the bag process. To me, it's if you have the baskets, it's fine, but if you're actually using like a mesh bag, I always find getting those little bits of kernels or grains and cleaned out of there kind of a messy pain in the butt, honestly. So for those of you who are not so inclined to use those systems, and those brew in the bag systems are commercially available, also cost money too, right? So what I'm showing you here is something that you can do yourself at home at a much lower price point, I believe, than you can get commercially. So what I'm showing here is a system which is cost effective because it doesn't involve multiple expensive stainless steel kettles. It doesn't involve multiple pumps or multiple burners. What I have is a single burner, single pump, single kettle system using a cooler as my mash tun. Now those who watch those old videos might remember I had a third vessel, a second cooler that this was my hot liquor tank, my HLT, which I would actually heat up water in here, put in here, and then put water in here with the grains, and then I would kind of do this kind of dance with the hoses and the water moving things around, and that was kind of the old days. But in recent years now, I've learned a lot. I'm going to do something a little differently. So I'm going to do something similar to what I have been doing on the BrewEasy, this system over here. The BrewEasy is available by Blichmann Engineering. They sell these things, right? And they're not cheap. They're good systems. They're not cheap, right? So what I'm going to do is take a lesson from that system and apply it to my DIY cooler system. I'm going to do the exact same thing where I have my boil kettle and my mash tun, like it does in the BrewEasy, with the mash tun on top and the boil kettle down below. And I'm going to do the very same thing here where I'm going to use my mash tun cooler with a PVC manifold in here to do my mashing. I'm going to recirculate it through the kettle here and what's called a RIMS process, or a kettle RIMS process. And RIMS also stands for Recirculating Infusion Mash System, right? So that's what I'm going to apply today. I've never applied it in this manner before. I've always used that third HLT vessel. So this is going to be a new experience for me. A little bit of the old, a little bit of the new, fused together for for what was going to be my first unique brewing experience with this this RIMS process with my old equipment. Looking forward to it. Hope it works out. I hope you enjoy it, and hope it gives you some options to get into brewing without a whole lot of money. All right, so stick around. When it comes to my pump, you can see here, this is a pump I've been using for a while now, a number of years. This is a Chugger brand pump. I've actually added some extra valves and things on here. One of these would be the actual out. The other is really more of a bleed valve to bleed the lines of air, so it will self-prime. And the input is over here, and I'm using cam locks for all of these. However, over the past couple of years, I've migrated away from using my chugger pump in favor of a Riptide pump, which is like this one here. And the Riptide I find to be a lot better, super quiet, not noisy. And this is especially important for today if I'm going to be doing a mash recirculation for an hour. I especially don't want a loud, screechy, noisy pump running this whole time. So but for nostalgic sake, I'm going to try the pump as is, see how it performs as is, but don't be surprised if I yank this out for the Riptide pretty soon. So let's try it out. Just a little noisy. Wow, it's really coming out here fast, isn't it? Let's adjust the flow rate, something like that. That's more palatable. So at this point, I'm transferring the strike water from the kettle into the mash tun, and I'm getting up to the prescribed level, and it's doing fine. And once it fills up, maybe I'll recirculate a little bit to make sure that it's at the right temperature, the right strike temperature I'm trying to get at about 163 degrees Fahrenheit. That's my target. One of the advantages of this versus my old batch sparge method is that I had to hit that strike number exactly. I had to heat the water up to exactly the amount required for the amount of grain and water I'm using to get the temperature in the mash that I want. Here, I can get close and then I can adjust with more hot water or by shutting off the water supply and stirring things up to release some of the heat. But either way, it's looking pretty good. Let's turn it off. Just like that. Gotta love that foot pedal. And the temperature is at a good solid, it's going up, 158, 159 or so. A few degrees shy, but it's okay. I'm gonna add the grains in anyway and see where it stabilizes, and then we're gonna start recirculating. Let's mash. Actually, that's really right where I needed it to go anyway. So this actually worked out well. It's 151 degrees. I was shooting around 150, and 1 degree ain't that much of a deal. All right, so I think it's going to drop probably half a degree real soon too, because it's still coming to equilibrium with the cold grains. So I think I'm going to change my approach here a little bit. I think I'm going to let this thing sit and as a single infusion mash in the cooler and not add the RIMS process into this just yet, because I think I got it exactly where I want it right now, 151 degrees. So I'll tell you what, I'm just going to close the lid for a little bit and let this sit, and maybe a half hour we'll come back and start recirculating. But I think for now, for the ease of brewing and having to maintain temperature and adjust gas levels, I think I'm just going to let this ride as is. So let's see what happens in a little bit. All right, it's been a little over a half hour. We just let this thing sit here. Again, the reason why is because the water in here was much hotter than I anticipated. I'm not going to run that through here and kill the enzymes. So I let this kind of cool a little bit for another 10 minutes. So it's been about 40 minutes since we started the mash. Yep. Right?
About 40.
Yeah, and so now we're going to recirculate. So in order to, Vorloff is the term we used to use, right? But it's basically recirculating the mash around and around. So, all right, well, let's get on with So now we're back to the whole give and take of what is similar to like what you get with a brew in the bag recirculating system or a continuous splice barge. We're trying to match the flow rates again, coming out with what's going in so we don't overflow the mash tun or drain it. So you gotta kind of keep an eye on these things. as we watch this go. And that's one of the downsides to this approach. Again, this is why going electric is so much nicer if you can afford it. But for now, yeah, this is fine. This is what I did for years. The mash is now done. It's been a little over an hour. Clay and I have been talking and goofing off over here about different things. It's still recirculating at the moment because I haven't quite got on to shutting the pumps off and starting to drain. But the next step now is to go ahead and drain this bad boy into the kettle and get the boil on. I'm going to do a little first wort hopping. So while it's draining into the kettle, I'm going to go ahead and drop. Oh man, here, Clay, come over and smell this.
Mm-hmm. Idaho 7.
Idaho 7. Someone on one of my live streams, I think, recommended it, and I've never used it before. Says it's got aromas of pineapple, peach, pine, resin, mango, and black tea. Interesting. Ooh. So it's 12.4 alpha acids. So first wort hopping. All right, so now it's stopped, right? So now we have how much is in there? 13, a little over 13. I think the rest of it is in these hoses. The mash tun into the kettle. We just hit our number. I think we were shooting for 13.5 gallons. We actually got it maybe a little tad shy, maybe from some evaporation along the way. About 13.4 is my guess. So it's really darn good. My spreadsheet does an excellent job apparently of guesstimating the total amount of water you need to start. So I don't have to do any top up or whatever, or add sugars or anything like that very often. So awesome. Speaking of adding sugars, it's time to check our gravity reading. What I'm going to use today is the EasyDens by Anton, Paar. I've been using this since November when I got it on a Black Friday sale, and I have not gone back to using hydrometers or refractometers since. This thing is awesome. I'm going to use it again today. So what I need is a sample. There's no more sample in here. This is done. And I can pull a sample out of here, I suppose. Now, I almost made a boo-boo. If you guys remember about a year ago, I did a video about mastering your mash and brewing process and system. It's a very lengthy video with lots of tips, really useful stuff on how to calibrate your equipment and get accurate measurements and dial in your process, right? I'll put a link to that in the description down below for you again. But I almost made the mistake I warned about in that video. What you got to do is when you transfer your wort over, now this is all homogenized from being recirculated already in this RIMS fashion, so I'm pretty darn confident this is homogeneous already. But because I've been burned by this before, I'm just going to go ahead and stir this all up really well, so I can make sure that I have a homogeneous sample of wort that is representative of the whole batch. And now I'm going to take a sample of my wort. It doesn't take that much because the Anton Paar doesn't actually require that much. So it's just a tiny little sample. In fact, this might be even way more than I need. It's only a little bit in the bottom of this cup. And even that might be overkill. So I'm going to get the measurement and be right back. Let's take our sample here from the EasyDens, or for the EasyDens. I'm going to pull that cooled sample, not all the way cooled to hydrometer cooling. You don't need to go that exact, which is one of the advantages of this thing. It's like 74 degrees, I think. So let's give this a shot. So I'm going to fill it up nice and slow. If I can get it to move. There it goes. Just a little elbow grease or thumb grease. All right, so now I got it filled, fill the fluid. I got my little app here. I'm going to say restart the test because the first test was it was too hot. So all right, here we are. This is our pre-boil gravity, 1.045 at 71.3 degrees. I'm actually going to, well, I'm not going to save this because this is not really ready to, it's not the original gravity, this is the pre-boil gravity. So I guess I could save it if I wanted to. I can always erase it later. Maybe I'll create a batch, call it, well, what are we brewing today? An American Imperial? So I'll just do APA for short. I can probably rename it later. All right, create. And do I love this app? I don't know. Maybe I do. Maybe I love it. Okay, great. Oh no, I don't want any more reviews. And there we go. Yeah. All right, time to fire up the kettle, guys. It's about flamed out here. There it goes. It's dying. It's gone. Oh man. Well. All right, guys. Well, another problem with propane. It runs out. So this is one of the big reasons that got me away from using propane was being tight. Oh, thank you, Clay. So he's taking the empty out. Thankfully, I have a spare full one on hand. And lucky that we caught it because we were off to the side talking. Just happened to decide to look at our burner, find out that it was low gas, and sure enough, it's out. So we caught it in plenty of time, but that is one of the frustrations about using propane and brewing, and a big reason why going electric is great. Well, time to hook up the next tank. There we go. Flame on. Back at it. So my gravity came up, my mash efficiency was about 69.6%. I guesstimated at 72 for this new system, so I was pretty close, off by a couple percentage points. However, it's still off a little bit, and my gravity is a little lower than I planned on, which is no big deal. Normally I would just say, heck with it and go with it. But if you recall back during that bourbon stout brew day live stream we did back in, I think, November, I actually missed my mark then, right? And I had to add some dry malt extract to it to help kick up the gravity for the boil, and that was a lot. So that actually made a difference. Now, with only a couple points difference here, I missed my gravity by 0.002, big deal. But since I can, and since I've updated my spreadsheet since then to accommodate for this exact scenario of missing your efficiency and adjusting for it by adding malt extract or water, my spreadsheet now does tell you exactly how much of what to put in to get you back on track for your boil. So that's what I'm going to do next. I'm going to adjust, I think it was 0.75 pounds, I think it was, according to my spreadsheet. I'm going to put that into the boil and get it back up to the right gravity. Down to almost the last 15 minutes of the boil. It's about time to start sanitizing my immersion chiller. And this is the immersion chiller, again, along the lines of my nostalgic brew day that I made as part of this 10-gallon system upgrade that I did several years ago. I have a video on how I made this. I'm actually quite fond of this chiller. It's worked well for me, and something I made myself, and I take a lot of pride in this thing. So I'm really looking forward to giving this thing one more try. It's been a while, buddy. Awesome. But actually, you know what? I got to go take care of something. I'm going to take a 10-100. I'll be right back. Clay. I'll tell you, this guy. Guess I'm using this. All right. I'm cheating here a little bit. I'm not actually going to use my old DIY chiller. It did serve its purpose, but it did take 15 to 20 minutes of chilling, and we're behind schedule today. It's getting dark out, and Clay's got to leave soon. So, I'm just kidding. So we're going to go ahead and use this thing, and as is, this is the Jaded Scylla, for those who don't recognize it, and I've used it many times already, so I'm just going to go ahead and use this. There's just some things I don't want to go back to using again. And including that old chiller now that I have this one here. So let's go ahead and attach the hoses.